Honorable Vijay Nath. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask question 40/2021, which appears under my name in today's order paper. And my question is to Honourable Minister for Commerce, Trade, Tourism and Transport. Can the Honourable Minister inform Parliament on the progress of government shipping franchise scheme, please? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I now call on the Minister for Commerce, Trade, Tourism and Transport, the Honourable Faiyaz Koya. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I thank the Honourable Member for the question. Mr. Speaker, sir, as a maritime economy, Fiji's shipping sector plays a critical and a vital role in trade and economic development and sustaining everyday livelihood. Mr. Speaker, sir, I apologize. Our re-export figures are evidence that a large majority of products actually go through Fiji and Fijian ports to reach other parts of the region and especially Pacific Island countries. Domestically, Mr. Speaker, so we actually rely on our inter-island shipping as our main transport and connecting outer islands to the main ports and towns and cities. So ensuring that every Fijian has reasonable access to transportation is actually well defined in our constitution. And this is where the government shipping franchise scheme, Honourable Speaker, sir, it actually takes a lead role. In recent years, the scheme has evolved, Mr. Speaker, sir, in terms of vessel capacity and scheduling and routes, and meaning that we're connecting more islands and serving more Fijians. The main objective of this scheme, Mr. Speaker, sir, was to service uneconomical sea routes to maritime islands which would otherwise be unserviced, and to promote private shipping operators and internal traders for movement of goods and cargo, encourage the transportation of the maritime public between outer islands and major urban centers, and incentivize transport operators through the support of government subsidy to service uneconomical routes. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, when I updated this August House last year, we were serving about 70 ports and 9 routes. And today, Mr. Speaker, sir, we're actually serving 80 ports with and without jetties for 10 routes with an average of about 15 trips a month. And the routes which are serviced are Lower Southern Lao, Rotuma, Lomai Viti, Northern Lao, Kandavu, Upper Southern Lao, Yasa, Samoala, Yasawa, Northeast Vanuatu, and Benga, Yanuda, and Vatulele. Mr. Speaker, so the newly introduced 10th route, Benga, Yanuda, Vatulele, opened up opportunities for additional 10 ports to be serviced, following an assessment that was actually undertaken by the Ministry from 2017 to 2019. The Benga, Yanuda, Vatulele route franchise commenced its services around the 11th of January, Mr. Speaker, sir, 2021, and will continue to provide monthly service to 14 villages. Mr. Speaker, sir, this basically means that 2,050 Fijians in these island communities now have safer and more reliable access to transport services for movement of both passengers and cargo. Mr. Speaker, sir, if we look back about 5 years or so under this scheme, we completed a total of 1,023 trips with a total of 84,004 travellers utilizing the services. That's a total of also a total of 36,255.89 tons of cargo transported to and from our main ports to the islands, including building materials and groceries and retail shop supplies, fuel and oil. And whilst the return trips actually carry copra and coconuts and seafood and dalo and mats and personal belonging as the main cargo. Mr. Speaker, so on average, we've had a 7% increase in both passenger and cargo movement between 2015 and 2020, and that's about 13,743 passenger movement and 5,957.59 tons of cargo transported annually. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Ministry has conducted a comprehensive analysis of each of the routes from 2018 to 2020, and I can confirm that the different types of ships moving to and from the islands, there is only an average 40% capacity utilization for both passenger and cargo. For example, Mr. Speaker, sir, for a 200-ton cargo capacity vessel, on average, there is only 40% usage, which is only about 80 tons of cargo. So furthermore, Mr. Speaker, sir, in our analysis, We've also identified ports that are maximizing the services, for example, in the Northern Lao route, which includes the ports of Yadata, Vanuambalavu, Dikombia, Tubuda, and Didia. Vanuambalavu and Didia maximizes the use of vessels registering more than about 800 odd passengers and more than about 300 tons of cargo annually. This can be attributed to the two villages having jetties, sir. Another example, Mr. Speaker, sir, Kandavu has about 14 ports in Dravuni, Bulea, Nangara, Matasawalewu, Nukuvo, Lavindi, Kandavu Koro, Vukavu, Soso, Dravualu, Muani, Levuka, Vadalea, and Davingele. The people of Dravuni, Nukuvo, and Bulea and Davingele mainly travel using vessels under this particular scheme, as well as for cargo movement through the ports of Davingele, Levuka, Vadalea, and Vukavu, maximize the use of ships. Mr. Speaker, sir, the role of government shipping services in the franchise scheme actually extends way beyond just the movement of persons and goods. When we connect these islands, we're actually providing them access to justice, health and education, the right to economic participation, and the opportunity to integrate into the supply chain by selling their crops and fish and trade in goods and service with the urban centers. Mr. Speaker, so yesterday I spoke briefly about the work undertaken by GSS. So apart from ensuring safe and navigation assistance post-disaster, they're also a key part of the scheme providing services to communities in the Yasawas and northeast Vanuatu, sir. These are highly uneconomical routes that private vessel operators are not able to service. These services, Honourable Speaker, sir, were not available in the past. It's this government, Mr. Speaker, sir, that has made it happen. Had it not been for the continued investment in the particular scheme, it would be impossible for services to be provided to these islands. Even though servicing these routes make essentially no profit for us, we'll continue to serve them as our obligation and our duty of care to our people, sir. And to further strengthen the capacity utilization, the Ministry is actually working closely, Mr. Speaker, sir, with other government agencies to ensure collaboration and increase in activity so as to maximize the provision of services to the island. And I reiterate, sir, the Fijian government is actually committed to taking the services to the people of Fiji, ensuring their most basic needs such as food and medical supplies are consistently provided. But just to allay any fears from the other side of the House, please be reminded that I pay close attention to GSS at all times so that we actually provide these services to our people in the maritime areas. I thank you, sir. I hope that's a good answer, sir.
I thank the Honourable Minister. Honourable Virendra Lal, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Can the Honourable Minister inform the House how many vessel operators service the scheme? Thank you, sir.
Honourable Minister, you have the floor.
Thanks, sir. Honourable Speaker, sir, there are 5 vessel operators that service the GSS scheme. We have Brighton Holdings Fiji Limited, we have Gandor Shipping, Valesasa Transportation Limited, Victoria Marine Limited, and Miller Shipping Services. These particular operators, Honourable Speaker, sir, provide franchise services to 80 ports for 10 routes with 15 trips conducted in 1 month. And the routes which are serviced are Lower Southern Lao, Rotuma, Lomaiviti, Northern Lao, Kandavu, Upper Southern Lao, Yasa, Samoala, Yasawa, Northeast Vanuatu, and Benga, Yanuda, Vatulele. Thank you, sir. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. Honourable Anare, Jale, you have the floor.
A supplementary question to the Minister. The length of time that the boat takes to travel to destinations in some of the routes that are under franchise is a concern to traveling public, because it means a lot of cost to them, feeding them during the period they spend in the travel. There is a significant length of time from what it used to be in the past. An example, a boat that normally takes 24 hours or 18 hours to travel from Monelau to Suva is taking 33 hours now. The boat that serves the lower route to the southern Lao is taking 33 hours to reach Suva.
Question.
What is your ministry doing in terms of determining the franchise in regards to the time that the boat takes to reach destinations.
You better remember to order the lunch takeaway home. That's the reminder.
I think he wants to sing happy birthday to Honorable O'Connor. There is a request, Honorable Speaker, sir, from Honorable O'Connor that Professor Biman Prasad sing him happy birthday during the break, sir. Sir, I think it's a very pertinent question, and there are some common issues that we need to address to improve the services. Basically, Honorable Speaker, sir, the Ministry has the 5 shipping franchise observers, the SFOs, that ensure that contracted vessels for franchise ships, first of all, they ensure that they're fully serviced. And of course, safety is paramount. You know, as we all know, when you're out at sea, at the end of the day, sometimes the trips may take a little longer. And we must ensure that safety is paramount on board. And these particular observers, Honorable Speaker, sir, they report on unidentified issues for actual improvement for the vessel operators. So we actually are doing something about it. At the end of each particular trip, Honorable Speaker, sir, these SFOs provide detailed reports highlighting the passenger and cargo movement, including customer service surveys, and to name a few common issues that have been addressed to date, sir, it's really to do with vessel capacity, with what improvements can be done in terms of the vessel quality, public information awareness, efficiency in the services delivery through increased competition, and obviously we've got emergence of small business enterprise being developed in the outer islands, etc. And lastly, sir, one of the most important components in all of this is what the Honourable Member was referring to, the improvement in turnaround time. So, for example, Kandavu, Honourable Speaker, sir, it's now improved from 5 days to 3 days. And similarly for Lomaiviti, Yaseasa, Moala, and Northern Lao. But we must remember, Honourable Speaker, so the most important thing is that this is travel by sea. And safety is paramount. So even sometimes we may think that, okay, we can do this in 24 hours, but it's the sea. You don't play with the sea. So sometimes it takes longer. Safety is paramount. That's what's important to us. But we are doing something about it to ensure that we actually do have a regular, more regular in terms of the time. So, but we do have SFOs on board who report back to us. I hope that suffices.
Thank you. Honourable Solitaire, you have the floor.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And thank you, Honourable Minister, for those commitments. And we are, those of us from the Maritime are indeed grateful for those franchise shipping routes. You mentioned on your commitment on duty of care and safety. So what kind of partnership do you have with the ministry responsible for jetties and also with the ship owners in regards to the safety of passengers in the upgrade of jetties and passenger shelters? You know, for example, it's chaotic at Natovi, particularly for those midnight trips, whereby I had to reverse into the boat and there's very limited lighting. And also at Nambawalu, Honourable Speaker, when we get off in the early hours of the morning. Even if it's not franchise, what about the others in Vonombalavu? Like there's no passenger shelter, Honourable Speaker. Thank you.
Honourable Minister, you have the floor.
Honourable Speaker, sir, I think if the Honourable Member had some issue done at Natovi, she ought to have called me and told me straight away. But nevertheless, sir, the opportunity is always there for you to call, and instead of coming here and telling me about 6 months later, nevertheless, sir, MSAF has the safety issues under control with respect to every single jetty that's there. Sometimes, if there is something lacking, please, I urge all members of the public and members of this House, please let us know, because they get on top of it straight away. We've had to reverse onto vehicles, and we haven't had an issue. I don't think reversing is actually a safety issue, sir. There are people that actually guide you onto the boat very carefully. I've traveled quite extensively on these boats. Honourable Prime Minister only travels by boats, and he'll tell you, sir, firsthand that they're very safe, and we do as much as we can. Unfortunately, he doesn't want to fly, that's why he goes on boats. But we do as much as we can in terms of safety at every single port and jetty. And the collaboration that exists, it's a whole of government approach when we look at these jetties and safety. It's not just one ministry. It's to do with NDMO, it's to do with the Ministry of Infrastructure. All of those, we do look at it holistically. So it's something that we take very seriously, sir. But I urge all members of the public, if there is an issue, please let us know as quickly as possible. Thank you, sir.
Last supplementary question. Honorable Rasova, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I thank the Minister for the update on the franchise all over Fiji. I'd like to ask a question. Last year, we approved a bill whereby government can extend the contract to all the franchise companies to give a 20-year contract, and I think it's now reduced to 15 years. Given that, to allow them a confidence to the bank so they can give a new boat. 1 year later, the boats are still the same. Can you just update the people? When will you bring new boats to these companies to franchise all over Fiji?
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. So when we did think of this, there were good times, and at the moment, I think Honourable Member does know that the times aren't very good, and the banks, in terms of banks dishing out money very quickly, it's a bit tough, but I think we just need to ride the storm. I don't think it should be an issue at a later stage, but most of the operators are doing the best that they can with what they have. You must realize, sir, the travelling public is what actually, government subsidizes it. Travelling public actually pays for this. Also, there is a lesser amount of travelling public purely because of economic downturn, etc. So you have to put all of that into perspective. But it's not something that's off the cards. I think the economic climate at the moment would tell you that that would probably be a little later rather than just now. I hope that suffices.
We'll move on to the third oral question today, and I call on